2010 meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. The first item on our agenda is the review and approval of our minutes. The minutes of our previous meeting, which was held on September 23rd, 2010, have been distributed for review. Does anyone have any changes, corrections? I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And second? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, minutes are approved. And thank you again to Anne for preparing them. They are excellent, and I always enjoy reading them, so thank you very much.
No, that's definitely a major contribution.
Okay.
Having done it once, I
Right.
appreciate it.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item is our work group reports and discussion. So we'll start that off with climate change. Josh, do you want to report on where we are there?
Sure. We are still in the process of meeting with stakeholders to discuss the development of our greenhouse gas reduction plan, action plan. And we have a meeting scheduled next week with Lieutenant Antonini from the police force here at Radnor Township. I at least will be meeting with him, maybe a few more of us. And also hope to meet with Bill Hagan that same week if we're lucky. But at least we're moving forward. And during the process of preparing for the meeting with Lieutenant Antonini, we hope to also start putting together a draft action plan so that the stakeholders that we do meet with from here on out can see sort of where we're heading and some ideas that we have gleaned from other townships, other municipalities. So that's
Great, very
the
good.
update for now.
Thank you. And I actually skipped over the announcements, so let me just backtrack there for a second. I only have one announcement, which is to remind everyone that the next EAC meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, not our regular Thursday, but Tuesday, November 30th, and it's going to be a combined November-December meeting. Generally, we have issues this time of year because our meetings are held on Thanksgiving and or Christmas, right in the holidays there. So we have one meeting, combined meeting. Just remind everyone it's Tuesday, November 30th. Does anyone else have other announcements? No? Okay, great. So let's jump back into our schedule. The next work group we have is sustainability, and we actually have a few subcategories under there. The first that we'll take on is the sustainability series. Anne, if you want to give an update on where things stand with that.
Well, I want to remind everybody that the next program, which is going to focus on conservation development and zoning issues, is set for Monday, November 29th. That's the Monday after Thanksgiving in this room from 7 to 9. And we're going to have representatives from the Natural Lands Trust come and talk about the zoning possibilities, zoning plans for conservation development. And we're also really pleased to have, as part of the program, the West Vincent Township manager who has worked on conservation zoning issues in his area, as well as Chip Vaughn, who is a builder who has worked in conservation development projects. And we're not planning to have this broadcast by television. We really do want people to come. It's an important conversation for the township to have. So please plan on coming and bring your friends.
Okay, great. And are you posting that to the township website, Anne?
It will be. We've just finalized the
Okay.
the group. Yeah.
All right, great.
And you said that was going to be held here in this room?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a reason why it's not going to be broadcast?
I think it's an important conversation, and I think there's some fear on parts of the people who are planning it that too many people stay at home and don't come, and we think it's important for people to be in the same room having a conversation about it.
I see what you mean. Unfortunately, I can't make that day, and I was hoping to be able to watch it on the broadcast, the rebroadcast.
Could it be taped, perhaps, and then available on the web?
I'll look into it, but we really do want to get people out for this program. It's very important. I mean, the Natural Lands Trust people are coming with the understanding that there's going to be a good audience to talk to. So I do hope that people will come.
Okay. Okay. Also under sustainability, we wanted to report out on alternative energy ordinances. So Sloan and I have been for some time talking with township staff about alternative energy ordinances. There's some interest in moving forward with that at the township level, and Dan Malloy had given us some drafts to look at that I guess he had worked up. Perhaps, I don't know whether he had worked it up together, but the township solicitor had been involved in that. One for solar, one for wind, and one for geothermal, and asked for our input on it. We got together, we both developed comments, put together a document, and shared it with Dan. And I know we did not have an opportunity to consult with everybody on the EAC. I apologize for that. We were under a short deadline, but I did circulate it around. And if you have any disagreement with anything that we said or anything that you want to add, definitely let us know, and we're happy to share that. One of our major comments, though, was if we want to pursue ordinances for the purpose of perhaps encouraging alternative energy, that we want to make sure that there's not so many requirements in such an ordinance that it tends to discourage people from pressing forward with something like that. So that was maybe one of our overarching comments. Can we achieve the goals with less regulation? But in general, we're in favor of doing what we can to promote alternative energy use here in the township, and perhaps having an ordinance brings some attention to it and helps to balance some of the issues that may arise to the extent that people start doing new things, either putting up solar arrays or installing geothermal wells or things like that. So we've submitted those, and we're hopeful that we'll have further conversations about it and perhaps get more information about how this is going to proceed. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Sloan. But
I would just emphasize your point about really trying to seek a balance, and we understand that some of these systems could impose on neighbors if they're not done correctly. So definitely encourage the township to pursue a well thought through, balanced ordinance where people are encouraged to adopt alternative energy systems. The township can put some reasonable guidelines in place to balance it, not discouraging people who want to do it, and also recognizing the need to be a good neighbor when you do this type of thing. So that's what I think the spirit of our comments back was, and great to see them moving forward on something, and hopefully we can continue to work with them, and if they have another iteration, we'd be happy to help.
Absolutely. And we did a bunch of research as well. So we've seen some of the models, the PA models, as well as models from elsewhere, and implemented ordinances.
Right.
So it's not as though it's rocket science. It shouldn't be that
it's not.
difficult to pull
That's
together, and
right.
there's a lot to learn from what other folks have done.
That's right. That's right. And I think in general, most of them are, they give a township some sense of where the lines are, but don't get too micromanaging in terms of the exact size and too many details. So I think that's where we're hoping to move on that. So.
Right. Does anyone have any questions about that? Yes, Skip.
Yep. Pardon my voice, I'm getting over a cold. I had two comments. One, I think, and I don't know if this is a unique experience or maybe this is something that you might want to look at. I believe that one of my neighbors, for what it's worth, has a backup generator, and I believe that it seems to come on so frequently that they may have some arrangement to avoid hitting peak power use with PICO. And I'm more than a house or two away from it, and it's a borderline nuisance under the guise of reducing their electricity use, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's something that might be worth taking up with staff or just throwing it out there for consideration. That
And is it the noise level that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm pretty confident that we have noise provisions in the code already. So if it is a noise issue, it may be worth seeing whether the noise level, and I'm not sure whether we have a particular noise level that we regulate, or it's some kind of phrase that,
one or two
bothers.
other neighbors have emergency power, and when you can hear that come on when everything is out, but
Right.
this comes on every week.
Hmm.
And it's probably the normal noise level for a backup generating system, but the frequency is different than emergency.
Hmm.
And it strikes me that that's something that if it were it became a more common practice, that would be a detriment to the
Right,
township.
right, okay.
The other comment I had is that in looking at the three ordinances,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to have fairly stringent restrictions on wind. Because there are geothermal doesn't harm migrating fowl, and solar doesn't do that, and I think both of those are much quieter, back on my noise topic, I guess, than solar or geothermal. So when it comes before the Planning Commission, I anticipate that we'll be pretty hard on that. So don't take too much out.
Okay, and in that, even in the draft, I think they had a decibel level listed for the noise on the wind. And I think one of our comments was that on that particular issue, we ought to specify how that's going to be measured, because as I understand it, there's various ways that you can measure noise. And so if we're going to set a limit on noise for that particular reason, we ought to all agree up front on how it is that that's going to be enforced, so that when an issue does come up, at that point, people aren't arguing about, well, you're not using the right meter or this or that, so, okay, very good.
If I could just quick comment on that backup generator issue. I have one in my neighborhood too, and the manufacturer that provides the generator often has a recommended testing schedule, and it could be as often as a weekly test. And that might be something that maybe isn't apropos to a green ordinance, but like you said, a noise ordinance or something. Our township, for some reason, or at least my neighborhood, for some reason, tends to be predisposed to power outages, so I'm not surprised that there's a bunch of them in there, and no doubt it's could be a natural gas, or it could be a diesel or a gasoline generator, and there's more than just noises, there's also emissions from that, and I don't believe emissions are regulated from such small generating units, especially not residential units, so it would just be noise, a noise ordinance as far as
I think it's an unintended consequence that when it goes beyond testing and it becomes a means of controlling your connection to the grid, that it's an issue in neighborhoods where, everybody is fairly close.
Yeah, in some states, like for instance in New Jersey, it's not allowable to peak shave or to load shed with a commercial emergency generator. I'm not sure if there's any regulations against people doing it, but
It would be odd, though, that a person would be doing it.
Certainly
just
would
because
be.
their load is not that significant, even at a peak time.
yep. And this time of year,
Run your dishwasher at a different time, as
Yeah,
opposed to, you
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
yeah, and this time of year
It's
doesn't
kinda
have
odd.
doesn't have the peak hours that the summertime would have. So it's worth looking into.
I haven't
though.
heard it as much lately.
Wow.
Maybe that's part of
Is
it.
it a neighbor that you ever run into that you could
Yeah.
politely inquire what's going
Well,
on?
I'm not saying that I know that that's what happens, it's just that it's on so often that it strikes me that that's what's going on. So it's actually conjecture on my part, but I wondered if it was something that the board had seen or heard of before. That's all.
I haven't heard anything
I have
about
not.
that.
Yeah,
I
heard-
do
I heard the
have-
expression peak shave, so you've heard of
Right,
it.
right. I do have an emergency generator, just for the record, because we were in the same situation that you were in. Our power used to go out all the time and be out for days. And I live in Bryn Mawr. I mean, I'm less than a mile from the hospital, but it used to be out all the time. We'd had these big, extension cords running through the whole entire neighborhood. It was crazy. So we finally got an electric generator. Once we spent the money for that, we didn't lose power very much at all. After that, it's, problem went away. But it does test once a week. Ours does. I don't think it goes for an extremely long time, but it does come on once a week as its own little testing thing and then goes back off again.
Is it loud when it goes on?
You can hear it. Like if I'm in the house, I can hear it go on, but I don't think it's so
So
loud as to be
loud.
bothersome. But that's my opinion, yeah. it's loud.
Proximity too, I mean,
Right.
I would mind it more if.
Do you live in my neighborhood? Okay, just checking.
West Green.
Uh-huh.
I would mind it more if I lived about another house closer.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, it's good. We'll make sure that we keep our eye on that and the wind issues as we go forward. And okay. Next item under sustainability that I wanted to bring up is just to mention, I had sent an email around about this, is that Community Energy is seeking to apply for some grant money to undertake a pilot program related to electric vehicle charging. So what they want to do is they want to encourage the use of electric vehicles for commuting in and out of Philadelphia. And I think the main line is a perfect place for more use of electric vehicles because it's a short commute in and out. But what they're thinking to do is to have a few parking spots where they can install an electric vehicle charging station. So it's like a pole, and you can plug your vehicle in if for some reason you run out of a charge on your way in or out. And they had contacted the township to ask if there might be some parking spots in Wayne, because they were looking for a place where it would be prominent, people could see it, so as to promote the idea. There was a concern, though, that parking spots in Wayne are at a premium, and could they really afford to be giving up a couple of parking spots that would be dedicated only for this purpose? So it was suggested that perhaps these folks take a look at some of the private lots, maybe the Acme lot or some of the private lots that might be available. And so we put them in touch with some private lot owners and then gave them some suggestions for other private lot owners to contact. So that's kind of where that stands, but I at least wanted to update everybody. I mean, I think it's a good thing for the township to be a part of this, but I do understand the concern about the limited parking that's available in Wayne.
Does the township have any parking that's not maybe as central, but might be still available if they're just looking for a place to charge cars, or is it
There
very
was
much?
there was some discussion about perhaps the lot that's across from the fire station in Wayne, but I think it's a leased lot, and so there was concern that, well, if for some reason that lease didn't continue, what would that mean? And Community Energy is really kind of looking for prominent spots because they want people to see this. So not only is it meant to be a service, but it's meant to be an educational aspect of the pilot as well.
Right.
So we were thinking about any lots or spaces along Lancaster Avenue. One of the things that we had talked about is, there's that big building across from Gennardi's, like that's getting a little bit out of here, more in St. David's then, but like the Brandywine building or the Acme lot or some of
And
those
there's the
folks that
Sinkler
have-
built, but I guess that's private. I'm not sure.
Oh, I
It's
don't know.
sort of near the old post
Yeah, I
office.
know what you're talking about. I don't.
I mean, it's prominent. I think it's almost not being used very much.
It
But
looks a little quiet over there.
Are these metered in some way?
They are, as I understand it, you put money in, or I think the idea would be you'd swipe a card, right, and then you can plug in, right?
It's very cool. Do they have cars that are? I guess they have cars that they would be able to plug in and charge.
When you say they, I think they're looking to the
Community
public.
Energy.
I think they're looking to the public to
So
use
this would be
these.
available to somebody who has a chargeable electric
Right.
car to
Mhm.
use to plug in, and
I'm not sure how many of those there are in Radnor, but I think
Well,
they're trying to
did see-
encourage them.
I did see that GM is advertising at least the Volt, the new electric car. I don't know if it's available yet, but I understand it's soon to come, so maybe it will be something that.
And it may be a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Once
Yeah.
you get the things there, and people say, "Oh,
Oh,
I could
right.
charge." Well, I guess I could get that car because
Right.
now I know that I'd have some place to charge it if I ran into
That's right.
a problem.
I'm sure that's right.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, still under sustainability. Sloan, do you want to talk a little bit about promoting green building in Radnor and
Right.
and
So
where we wanna head on that?
where we left it, the larger concept is what can we do to integrate green building into perhaps the permitting process and development process in the township. There are townships that have explicit permitting, green permitting programs going on where people get credit for green building techniques. We're sort of thinking in phases in terms of perhaps a first step being researching what what makes sense in Radnor. and looking to put together maybe a brochure that we could put, in a prominent place around this building and maybe on the Green Radnor web page, which would have good ideas for people to consider as perhaps a first step towards something more elaborate where it would be more explicitly incorporated into the permitting process. So for that,
Although we don't have any buy-in on that
We've
yet.
got no buy-in on
So
that.
we have buy-in on doing a brochure, so that's
Right,
the step
so
that we're taking right now,
we're
right?
doing what we can. So
Right.
first step is, or maybe it's the last step, but the step we're taking right now is to collect info that would be appropriate for homeowners in Radnor who are thinking about what can I do. I'd love any suggestions, anything anybody has. Send it my way. I'll try to aggregate it up and may rope one or two folks in to help actually put together a little brochure and as tailored as possible to Radnor because there's an ocean of info out there. Really, this would be an effort to try to make it a little more efficient for folks looking to renovate their home, build a new home, that sort of thing. So, not looking to reinvent the wheel. If there's great stuff out there, really trying to synthesize it down and target it for Radnor. So, open to any good examples. You've already sent me
Right.
some things I'm looking through.
We should also make sure that we incorporate water sense in there to
Right,
encourage
and
people to
use
use water sense.
for example, I looked today and the, Sierra Club has a very nice 10 quick ways to green your home. I made a couple of copies. These are sort of below the radar of true renovations. These are more kind of the let's call them the lower hanging fruit, but good ideas. I thought it would be useful just to read them off. 10 quick ways to green your home. The first is insulation. Insulation, can save a considerable amount of energy. They've got a 31% of air leaks occur in floors, walls, So basically, number one idea, insulate. Number two are the CFL light bulbs, some more efficient light bulbs. I love this third one, solar drying. Basically suggesting using a clothesline to dry your clothes instead of a dryer.
Although I think in some homeowners associations,
Yes,
they
there
don't
are
allow
rules.
that, so you better check your rules
Yes,
before you
that's
start
right.
doing
In fact, in the blog discussion after this, some people were saying, "Well, I'd love to do that, but I can't do it in my community." So, this is an example of where maybe in our tailored brochure, there may be some places where it's not appropriate in a apartment building or something like that. But then there's the composting point. And then saving water. They've got essentially the sort of water sense kind of suggestions in terms of shower heads and faucets. Number 6 is water filters. So instead of using bottled water, using filtered water. And then they've got some ideas on green cleaning, using more environmentally friendly cleaning agents. Then they've got number 8 is thermostat control. They've got programmable thermostats, which are particularly helpful for folks who are outside of their home all day and can automatically have the temperature drop during the day and then come back on when they're commuting home. Less useful if somebody's home all day. Then blackout curtains, which can really help in cold climates in the winter. And then finally, their 10th is essentially using power strips to avoid a lot of energy drain to appliances, computers, when they're not in use. turning those strips off and cut off the energy drain. So these are sort of simple, fairly, most of these are fairly inexpensive. So these kind of ideas, which aren't really even permitting ideas, but might be useful in a larger brochure. I thought these were good ideas from the Sierra Club. So we'll continue to look, and there'll probably be some larger scale ideas as well. Geothermal, solar panels, that sort of thing. So please send any ideas this way, and we'll start a draft and work on that. So
Sounds good. Great, thank you.
okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is water sense.
No real update there. I haven't seen any big news bulletins from the EPA on that.
You know, just before the meeting, I was walking around the lobby out here, and I didn't see any material out in the lobby. And I thought that we have said we were going to put some things out there.
I'll check if we're out, because
Okay.
we put several dozen out, the lawn care suggestions, and then the general simple tips for the
Well,
home.
if we're
So
out, that's good. That means
It's
people are
out,
picking
it's
it up.
great.
So, okay. All right. So we may want to check on that and replenish the supply. But if anybody does come by the township looking for it and it's not
Yeah.
here, it's definitely on the web.
It's on the
Right.
website.
Okay.
Right.
Very good. Next item is open space. Anne, do you have anything to report? Any new development?
action since last.
Okay.
I have a comment.
All right.
I don't know if everyone has had a chance to see the preliminary report on solving our budget shortfalls.
No, not yet.
Okay. The committee or group recommends selling 9 different parcels of township ground and freezing and closing, at this point, the open space acquisition budget, shutting it down.
Including not drawing on the $20 million bond that was authorized, right? That was one of the recommendations I saw, that they say don't fund this, I think it
Right.
was.
Basically, right. Yeah. Some of the parcels that they recommend selling are odd, and it's surprising that the township actually owns them. You know, it's like 200 square feet here and a quarter of an acre there. But the Levin tract, which was a big deal, is on that hit list. And the park on Lancaster Avenue, the Pocket Park, yeah. They're both listed as recommended to be sold, so everyone knows.
Do you gather that there's much support for that, or?
I think it will be an interesting meeting in front of the commissioners when it comes up. Here and there, there's maybe some of the tinier parcels make no sense at all. I could see a lot of pushback on the Pocket Park and Levin now.
Right.
Does
right,
that
for all the energy
Pocket
that's
Park,
been put into
I mean,
this.
it looks, it's quite nicely maintained. Do you know if it gets much use or traffic, or it's sort of?
Maybe it's the layout of the park and I'm driving by.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen anyone in there, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that they're not there.
Right. The Levin tract, there was some talk about
Use for
like
stormwater.
right, and a trail or a.
Well, we have the trail right
But,
next to it, so.
No, within it, for
Within it, yeah.
educational purposes, to discuss wetlands and stormwater. And
I think people were upset at the time. My recollection, having lived near it since 1983, is that there were water issues, to be sure, and traffic issues. And I don't know if it's as desirable open space as other open space. Could be.
Except that I was under the impression that it was important for dealing with stormwater in that section of town. Although I
There's
don't know.
all sorts of stormwater problems in Radnor, not
Yeah.
just there.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know if that report's posted on the website?
I could send it to you. I got it from my commissioner, Don Curley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could you
Just
circulate
clicked on
it?
the link and that was it.
Okay, if you would circulate,
Okay.
that would be great.
Good.
Okay.
Great, thank you for letting us know about that.
It is being presented to the commissioners? Is that the next step, or?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but I know that they intend to present it. Great, I'll send it to
Okay.
you, and you can just,
All right, that sounds good.
people that are here, people that are not here.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Brenda, would it be appropriate for the EAC to comment on it?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, not that anybody's asked us, but
No,
there's
but
no reason why we can't
We
comment.
put in our 2 cents.
That's right, yeah.
It's a huge document. I mean, there are all sorts of things in there. Pay comparisons, number of police officers per capita, all sorts of stuff in there.
Yeah, I read the newspaper account, and it sounds like a very,
The actual report is meaty.
yeah,
You should look at that.
yeah, and,
I'll do it before I go on my trip.
Oh, good, thank you, thank you.
I mean, it seems like a very good effort and very important, so, you know, it's a good thing to drill down
So
on.
and we'll try to find out too when it's being presented to the Board of Commissioners, because if
Maybe
we,
in the document that I
okay,
just
because if we do have comments and it's before our next meeting, then maybe we can, you know, have some discussion before then. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is community environmental awareness. Josh, you said you were working with Heather on some of those issues.
Yeah, I joined up with Heather in working on the Wayne Elementary School Green Team or Green Committee. I forget what it's called, but so I've just gotten started, and I haven't been quite as active as I'd like to be. But there's a few things that I can tell you that we're working on, and that is one of which that I'm more responsible for is to maintain the green page of their website. And they do have one. It's sort of located, I think it might be a little bit buried in the PTO section of their website. And it's unclear to me yet at this point as to whether the entire school district is considering aggregating their green pages yet at some point, you know, but right now I think this is just a Wayne Elementary School green page. But what we're looking to do is to have weekly publications, electronic publications, to advise parents and children, especially children, on some interesting green topics. I could give you one example that I think would hit home with an elementary school student, and that's really the idea here is to present things to parents who are probably reading these emails, so that they might be able to show their kid, you know, and that would be something about how much water you can save by turning the faucet off when you're brushing your teeth, you know, something simple like that would be easy to present in a very small blurb in 3 sentences, and it's easy to fill up the whole school year with small little blurbs like that kids can really sink their teeth into.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hoping to do is to find a way to get it to the kids first, but without having to have the parents disseminate it to the children. And one of the ideas we had is I think they have an announcement every day. There's a student does the announcements. And what we're hoping to have is a green announcement that is tagged onto that.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Another thing that they do at Wayne Elementary School are something called house teams. And the house teams are a multi-age group of students get together, and they have it's like a problem-solving session. The way I understand it, my children are not yet involved in that, but what you'll get is you'll get a 5th grader sort of leading the group, and you'll have 4th graders doing the next level of leading, and then 3rd, 2nd, down to 1st graders, and they all will have one task to do. And we had a meeting with Dr. Sharon Johns, who's the principal at Wayne Elementary School, and she agreed and thought it was a great idea for the next school year to have a overarching green theme to the house teams sessions, which we found to be a great coup, and we're very happy that we got that her tacit agreement to that. And so what we'll be doing this year is sort of working up plans for ideas for these green teams for next year.
Great.
Yeah, and
That's terrific.
you know, these green teams can be anything from like a recycling. One of the things we do at this Wayne Elementary School is we promote the recycling of those foil juice packs You know, you've seen those. Capri Sun, I think, is one of them. There's actually a TerraCycle, a group that accepts these juice packs, and they give us 3 cents for every juice pack we donate. So maybe one of these house teams could be to actually go around and collect all these juice packs that are in these distribution points around the school, mostly in the cafeteria, obviously. Count them, weigh them, calculate how much money the school's going to receive, package them, put the mailing label on them, send them out, stuff like that. So we have some work to do for next year, but and I'm leaving out dozens of other things that have come up, including planting shade trees at the Wayne Elementary School, and doing some improvements to the wildlife habitat garden they have there, a bat box, other things too. So pretty exciting stuff, and hopefully this year we're going to start with the green tips every week, and then next year we're going to sort of broaden it out into maybe being a student-led effort for the greening of Wayne Elementary School.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we should think about putting a link between wherever you're putting these green tips and the Radnor Township webpage.
Yeah, absolutely. That came up, and that's one of the plans to keep the green tips as small as possible in this publication. It'd be very helpful to have links, and
Right.
we're hoping to both link to the schools page, to Radnor's green page, and to whatever else might make sense, whether it be Water Sense, EPA, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you for the update. Sounds like some good work. All right. Liaison reports. Skip, do you have anything from planning?
I think I've been sort of doing a piecemeal.
You have, okay, very good. Well, we've got those. Okay. All right, thank you. And Genevieve is not here tonight from Board of Health. So we'll move on to old business. Anything that is old business that needs some further discussion? No? Okay. New business. Does anyone here have new business items? Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask, you know, Ann and I had talked about this previously, maybe setting up a like a green tour of one of the green buildings in the township, whether it be the middle school or the law school where Ann is at. And it sounded like that might be a good idea because it'd be a good learning experience, and we can set it up either when in lieu of an EAC meeting or outside of that time. But before I press that forward, I kind of wanted to gauge what you all thought and whether you thought that you would want to come out for something like that, or you felt, well, I'm very familiar with green things. I really don't need to do that. I don't want to necessarily do that. Let's just continue with our regular meetings. Is there any feedback on that? You would love it? Great.
Yeah, I think it would be great, and I know there are some very good green buildings in the township. I know the middle school has a green roof, so I think there's some very exciting places that we could highlight the law school. I also think it'd be great if, this may be a little harder, but if there's like a really green home that we can, maybe it's not the first tour, but
Right.
at some point, if somebody's really done a lot on a residential.
There is, I'm just not sure it's in Radnor, it might be in TE. There's the gentleman who spoke at our sustainability series on greening your own home, and I just can't recall his name, but he had done his whole house green. And he's got a business basically trying to
green.
Yeah, right,
Great.
Exactly. So he might be willing
He might
to
be
do
willing
that.
to share.
Right. Save, Green and Save, I think is the name of it. Okay, good. All right, terrific. Well, then we'll work toward that and see about getting something set up. Very good. All right. And I think that's it. So thank you all for coming out. It's good to see everybody. All right, thanks.